We go. We are live. Welcome everyone to our book study group brought to you by John Lavenia Success Mastermind. I am John Lavenia in the flesh or via the interwebs or whatever. Really glad to be here with you guys as we continue our study of Working with the Law by Raymond Hollywell, which I have the copy right here in my hand. And I do see some of our friends who are tuning in right on time. Cecilia, good to see you. Missy's here. Janet's here. I actually got a note from Lindsay, who's one of our regular attendees and a full member of our mastermind group, that she's dealing with some family stuff right now. So she may not be able to make it. And I'm sure we got some more people tuning in. I did not send out a reminder today. So thank you guys for remembering where we meet and how to get here, because I have had, you know what? In fact, I'll say this to Missy. Hey, Bob, I see Bob here with us as well. Missy, you saw me this morning in this exact spot, and I have not left this exact spot. I did get a little taste of food. What did I eat? I got these microwave, it was like a chicken fettuccine Alfredo with chicken and broccoli. Man, I'll tell you what, after not eating, that was some tasty stuff. That was gourmet, baby. All right. So let's get down to it. So we just covered 3 chapters, or hopefully you did. You read 3 chapters this week. And this is the chapter, in this case, chapter 6, the law of increase, which I thought was interesting. The law of compensation, which he had a lot to say about who's responsible for that compensation. I really enjoyed that. And then chapter 8, the law of non-resistance, which actually had me thinking of one of you today, because I know we had a little drama and some lives here today. And I was thinking of non-resistance, not creating friction for yourself and making your own path harder. Anyway, as is tradition, I like to open it up for any thoughts you guys have on these chapters that we just covered. If you have had an opportunity to read them yourself. Oh, okay. So Cecilia, I see that in the chat. All right. So we have some members here who haven't gotten the book yet. It is on Kindle. I know I happen to have a paperback in my hand, but it is on Kindle. So you can get it that fast, like bam, done that fast. So Missy and Bob, you got your hand up. Come on out. Get us started, please.
Well, there was a thing that happened today, everybody, in the other meeting John does at 1:00. And this thing caused me to go into a rage. It got me very, very upset. Somebody was in the wrong, but then I went in the wrong because I had it with this person. It was like a little Antifa. I could see her burning the flag as she was talking, but that's how I imagined her to be. But that's how she acted. But I did not follow this law. And you spoke about it. I was not like water. I was like rock going into rock. And possibly if she was in front of me, she would have had a rock in her face. You know, I don't know. But look at Bob looking at me. I'm telling you the truth. That's how I felt. But I forgive this person. I want to rise above this reactionary, habitual way that I've been for many, many, many years. And I am working toward it. I forgive her. I asked Bob, who's in the seminary, is there any other way I can do this other than through prayer and forgive? But he doesn't know yet. But if you know a way, John, please let me know, because I need to correct this very badly. Desperately.
The challenge that we face here is that we're dealing with somebody that is not on a personal level, that is interpersonal, that it's everything is virtual. And if there were some way of establishing real contact, it would be much easier. But that being said, curious thing is that Saturday I was discussing with Missy the very passage about the water. All the chapters were great. all the chapters were great, but this one was particularly good, chapter 8. He seems to get stronger as you go through the book, I've noticed.
Hmm.
And it's a lot like the last chapter I read is the one I remember the best. Maybe it's because, I'm dealing with memory issues, but the, uh, the notion that water does what water does. It's simply following its course. And if it doesn't have a course, it works around it. Or sometimes it does actually leap over rocks. It'll turn to the left, it'll turn to the right. It may work underneath the rock, but it doesn't try to dislodge it until it becomes a large enough body of water where it can wreak havoc. Just ask our friends in New Orleans. So that really resonated with me. And then as we went further through the chapter 8, he was talking about meekness.
Mm-hmm.
Meekness and weakness are not synonymous. Meekness is actually a manifestation of strength, of interior strength. And I thought about Jackie Robinson. Now, very few people remember this, but when he was called up to the big leagues, he was told, "You will not retaliate," for 2 years. Now, Robinson was kind of a hothead. He was a passionate individual. He was a very determined individual. And he said to Branch Rickey, who brought him up to the Dodgers, said, "Are you looking for someone who's afraid to fight?" And he said, "No, I'm looking for someone who has guts enough not to fight."
Mm-hmm.
Now, no one would say Jackie Robinson was meek, according to the way the world defines meek, but that just stuck in my mind, that his ability to exercise that self-control and self-restraint when so many people were hating on him, it's admirable, extremely admirable and worth emulating.
I want to become unflappable. And if I did that thing that you talked about today, where you sat in a room and people yelled at you, there would be dead bodies all over the floor. And I don't want that anymore. That's useful in certain situations if your life is in danger or something like that. It did not serve me today. You say you can't break the law, but I broke the law today.
No, you fought the law.
No, I broke it.
No, you just didn't work with it. And who paid for that?
Well, I was upset for hours, so I guess.
Bam. You broke yourself. You
But
didn't
I
break the
don't
law.
want, there was the second time it happened last week and this week, and I don't want it to happen to
Okay.
other people. So
Let's take this up, everyone. We're talking, hey, Virginia, good to see you. We're talking about the law of non-resistance. So we're going to get back to the law of increase, which was chapter 6, and the law of compensation, which was chapter 7. But since this obviously struck a chord with some of our friends here today, let's take up the law of non-resistance. Bob brought up the idea of water. Okay, so here is water flowing downhill, and it might just be a little trickle towards the top of the mountain, and it confronts an obstacle, a rock, a log, something, right? A bend. It doesn't sit there and bemoan and resist the the log or the rock or whatever. It will find its own level just based on the laws of gravity, and water works with the law, but it doesn't have an opinion about it, about the log or the rock or whatever. So when Bob talks about meekness, it reminds me of, because we've heard the quotes, right? Anyone who grew up in the West, right? The meek will inherit the earth. All right, so what does that mean? That I should be poor as a church mouse and my rewards come later? No. It says right here in the book, Raymond Hollywell talked about how this is something that's been used by religion to say, well, your shortcomings, let's overlook your shortcomings, because the fact that you're not successful now, you're going to be successful later in the afterlife. No, I think if we're talking about true meekness, we're not talking about sidestepping our own defects and shortcomings because somehow we're not to be rewarded in this life. I think that's a cop-out, my friends. Here's what I think. Being meek is knowing that you're the baddest cat in the jungle, and you don't have to prove it. And you don't have to assert your rightness. You don't have to puff up your chest. Some of you know that I've done a lot in the weapons training, gun training world, and I believe in being your own first responder, concealed carry, and all that. I live in the United States, so I have the constitutionally protected right to do such things, and I do. You've never seen me unarmed, just in case you were wondering. So what is that about? Is that now like I've got this big I'm walking down the street like with an extra penis or something? No. It's rather demure. Yeah, I think meek could be a word. Demure, humble,
Serene.
Yeah, alert, right? But at the same time, it's not something. I heard someone say, and let's see if this resonates for Missy and for everyone. Don't go anywhere with a gun that you wouldn't go without a gun. In other words, don't go looking for trouble. Just because you're armed doesn't mean you go down that dark alley. So what is that? We could call that being humble, being level-headed about that, being responsible, but at the same time, not being a victim. That's the thing. So when we talk about being meek and we talk about being like water, we're not talking about, look at me, I'm the doormat, right? Walk all over me. Nor are we talking about in the opposite direction, having to constantly assert how much better than you I am or something, or more able or stronger or whatever the story is that I'm running on myself, right? But it's again, what I call humility. It's honest self-appraisal. And so if we are able to work with this law, here's how it shows up, Missy and everyone. Here's how it shows up for me, is the ability to confront without the need to evaluate or make assertions about that which I'm confronting. Missy alluded to something I mentioned in a group session earlier today with our e-commerce people, is that I've had a lot of training in communication skills, and one of the exercises, one of the drills that I've done at length for hours, is where you sit knee to knee with your partner, and you take turns doing this, and you offer every insult, screaming, like the nastiest stuff you could possibly say to the other person, and jokes and other stuff too, to get them to react. Any reactions are what we're looking for, until that whole thing is just flat, where they could just sit there like a friggin' stone and react to nothing. No emotional buttons can be pushed at that point. So just like the water, who has no opinion about the rock, okay, you could sit there and confront any communication, regardless of what it is, objectively, and just be there with it comfortably. Now, that's not something you just show up and do. And sure, I have my own emotions. It's not like I walk around in a state of I'm a rock all day or something. Okay. But because I'm able, here's the thing, everyone. And I think this is where this could serve us profitably. Okay. In terms of business, sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, everyone here is engaged in some form of business. Okay. But let's say, or even at a job, right? Let's say you're confronting the irate customer, or the boss who is expressing their dissatisfaction with whatever performance you just gave, or whatever. Can you sit there and meekly receive the communication, interpret it for what it is, including not just the words, but here's the way in which it's being presented to you, which may seem uncongenial or abrasive or whatever, however it seems to you, right? Because you've got feelings too. But can you just suspend judgment for a moment and remain in present time, not start projecting all this stuff, and not picking up rocks, Missy, not picking up rocks. Okay.
I did at first.
Okay.
At first I was trying to just explain that she's
Okay.
misunderstanding.
I'm saying this as one hot-headed Italian to another.
I know.
Okay. So leave the rocks on the ground for a minute. Suspend judgment.
Please.
and just confront the reality that this person is demonstrating for whatever their reasons are. And I'll tell you how I've diffused situations where, perhaps I've been in a dialogue with someone and they want to have an adversarial position or whatever. Guys, this works really, really good, by the way. If you know what you're doing or what you're attempting to do for or with this person is good and right, and you've got, the highest good for all is your top of mind intention, you could pretty much shut it right down with just trying to help you out. Oh, they're just trying to help me. Now who's the asshole? Oh, me. Okay. Well, let me shut that down then. They're just trying to help me out. Right. And I know in the situation, and this is out of context, but it came up right here at the beginning here. We're talking about the law of non-resistance. But in the context of what Missy experienced today, which was her interpretation of the experience, and was she fully present to experience the whole thing? I'm going to argue probably not. There's some filters in there, right? There's some filters that could have augmented or colored the experience. Here's a person who's obviously unconscious, this other person, and I wasn't there to experience it. I came right in at the end. Here's this other, let's say arguably unconscious person who is displaying whatever they're displaying. But does that mean that they get to rent space rent free in Missy's head? Well, only if Missy lets them in. So inability to just sit there, confront it, and be comfortable with it without evaluation, judgment. Hey, I'm just trying to help you out, whatever. So that could have diffused the whole thing. That doesn't mean the other person would have gotten, the message. If people are unconscious, they're going to remain unconscious. Just the fact that the water doesn't judge the rock doesn't transform the rock per se. But because the water's intention is to get downhill, over time, that rock's going to move out of the way. Anybody ever seen like the Grand Canyon or any canyon for that matter, right? Cut by water, right? Intent, never ending intent. Not attachment, intent. So that's why in my sales trainings, I teach people to be like water. I think Bruce Lee said something like that too. Anybody recall the Bruce Lee quote, something about water? But if you have 100% intent, I'm attempting to serve this customer. I intend to deliver these benefits into the marketplace. That's my intent. My attachment to whether or not you accept my offer, well, I hope for your sake you do, but I'm going downhill regardless. I'm water, right? I'm going downhill. Okay. Intent, and then that rock cuts, right? So I think in this case, when we look at this law of non-resistance, which obviously struck a chord with some of us, anything where we can identify friction in our lives, what does that indicate to us? That we're resisting something, that we are actually entertaining a fight, a cognitive dissonance, an inner conflict in our own minds, that we might not get down the hill. In other words, if water doubted itself and started creating all this friction around it, if it had the ability to do that, right, that would be counterproductive. And the anatomy of that problem itself would be its own thoughts about the rock. In other words, it takes no more energy, talking about the law of non-resistance, okay? If it takes no more energy to go around the rock than it does to go around the rock with all these thoughts. I'm talking about water now. Water can't think, okay? But with all these thoughts about why I should or should not go around the rock. In our case, we're more conscious than water. Although I have seen those water crystal, things where they put like good thoughts into the water and bad thoughts into the water. But who's causing that? The water isn't causing that. Okay, but we're seeing the effect of thought on water, for those of you who have followed such things. But we've got more ability than the water does. We are cause. We are not just this inert, liquid. So in this case, the additional energy that's spent in resisting and having judgments and being offended right? The additional energy that we are expending doing that isn't getting us down the hill. In other words, isn't getting us around the rock any more efficiently than if we just went around the rock. That's what I think Ray Hollywell's talking about when he talks about the law of non-resistance. In fact, he started the chapter with a quote, "But I say unto you that ye resist not evil." There's a quote out of the Bible, right? So what does that mean? You just go into agreement with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, evil? No. It doesn't mean you're going to go, join the party or something. No, but that you, for your benefit, that you remain objective, that you aren't getting all resistant and frictiony. Because whose energy is it? That's the question I asked Missy before. Who got to suffer from that violation?
Bob did.
Right, Bob. Bob got to suffer, right? Did the other person suffer? No, they're still in victim land. They're suffering nonstop. It's not because they confronted Missy that they're suffering, right? That person's filters, let's say, are, and again, I don't have the context for all this, okay? But I could tell you that when people have come to me and wanted to play victim because I'm attempting to just help them out and guide them or whatever, well, they got bigger problems than just, I'm not their problem. I am not their problem. So what can I do? Here's the question, everybody. What can we do to be a part of the solution in that person's life and in our own? We can be like water, non-resistance. You know what? I can confront whatever is happening here. I can confront it. I can be there without getting emotionally involved with it to a degree. Okay, I'm not a stone. Doesn't mean I have to go into agreement with it. It just means that I don't have to be attached to it. Non-attachment. That's the trick. Or he says non-resistance. For me, those things kind of go together. Is this making any sense for anyone? I know we're in kind of a couple of rabbit holes here. Yeah. Any thoughts on this that anybody else would like to share? Okay.
I think it makes it harder. I think when you're attached to something, and hey, I've got at least as much Italian as you probably. We get attached. But when you're attached to something, you fight for it, you fight against it, you have opinions and emotions all over the place, absolutely all over the place. And what you're not doing is seeing the thing for what it is. So Missy, I'm sorry, I kept getting kicked out of Zoom, so I didn't hear your whole thing. But I know that the more attached I am to something, the more I really want that outcome, whether it makes sense to the whole world or not, the more I suffer, the more my emotions get involved, the more that I just, it takes so much more to get past that, over it, through it, when I can be calm and look at the horizon. Just, it's not about the details. It's not about the details. It's about, what do you want ultimately? Where do you want to be ultimately? And if you get mired in details, I don't think you get to ultimate, And I know that, for instance, breaking up with somebody or something else, it's like, and I can be angry and I can be hurt and I can be all these things. That person is off somewhere else. They don't feel it. They don't hear it. They don't think it. I'm hurting myself. That's the only person that I'm taking away from and hurting, because I'm so deep in this emotion. And the more that time goes on and I can learn to let go of that emotion, let it calm down, breathe, really to breathe and get into our center. And then I'm more level. I'm just not so invested, as you say, John, the non-attachment thing, or that I can just be not involved in it so much. I hear it, I see it. I'm not without thoughts, but I don't have to get so very involved in it, that it ties me up in knots, and I can't do anything more. And certainly I have been there. And I'm not saying I won't be there again, possibly in an hour, who knows? But the more that I can step away from it and breathe into it and say, okay, and see it for what it is, because no one's reality is the same as my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so I have to know that there's more than just my way of seeing it. And certainly I had to learn that with my dad, who knew how everyone should be and how they should live their lives. And it wasn't for me. So I had to learn that, yeah. And the more I can understand, not that I have to get involved with it, but the more I can understand where that person's coming from or what's triggering them, the more that I can keep myself calmer about it, because it's not really my thing necessarily. I can get myself a little more away from it. And then it's helpful. Thank you, Missy. So, it's just that, yeah, I need to distance myself a little bit, get some breath, get some calm, and not be mired in the details. Details are killers. I don't.
When you're saying details, I think you're talking about all the little mental evaluations of all these little things. Is that what you mean by details? Because I like details.
I don't mean business-wise. You need to know all the bits to put them together well. I mean emotional things. I mean that when something is happening and especially, you would know this, John, but as women especially, I think we tend to go, well, what if? Well, how come? Well, something, and we weigh all of these different things, and it doesn't matter. In the end, all those things don't matter. You're playing head games that are just taking your energy and not giving you anything in return. I know that, and John, so I said, I know that in general, men tend to be, think differently than women. Not always, and not in everything, but women get real down into the details of things, the emotional details. So I'm trying to say, the more I can step away from that kind of detail.
Got it.
That kind of what ifs, then I have a better chance of calming down and seeing things for what they are. And no one sees it the same. I have to allow, if I want to be allowed to feel the way I feel and think the way I think, I've got to allow them to do the same thing.
Well,
I have to allow it. And if they aren't on the same path that I am, if I'm in a different place in my
journey,
but if I'm still growing in this area or that area, and they're in a different place, they're in a different place. You can't expect other people to be in the same place you are. There was a time, so Southern California road rage. Oh, I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. But if somebody cuts me off in the freeway or something else happens, it's like, okay, they're on a different path than I am. If I get mad, then I will stay mad for a really long time. That doesn't serve me at all. But if I just say, you know what, they're just on a different path, go on your way and be safe, then I don't get involved in it so much. And I don't have to have it affect me and my day.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. I got it. I got what you mean now by the details. Very good. Missy, you had a comment.
I think Bob did, but I just wanted to quickly say that I am thoroughly shocked the way I reacted. First of all, I thought I was muted. I thought everybody was muted today at the meeting.
I wasn't there. I came in right at the end of it. So.
No, when I said I'm leaving, I thought I was muted. I thought you muted everybody. And I was just talking to myself, and Jan said, no, everybody heard you. But injustice is my trigger. and she was unjust, and she would not accept any explanation, and she would not. But my reaction is more shocking to me than what she did. After all this time, after all this progress, I'm almost in a state of shock and paralysis that I allowed this to happen to me, or I allowed myself to do this, however you want to say it. Looks like Napoleon Hill went out the window, Waddles walked away. I don't know what happened. It was some kind of a deep-seated, whatever she was. But
You've got buttons. Somebody pushed your buttons. That's it.
She pushed some more, but Jen, I really appreciate your words in there. I'm going to take them to heart and put them to use. And I took Bob's time because poor Bob never gets a word with me and around. I'm going to pet the cat for a minute.
Well,
Thank you, Missy.
I can't remember what was being described, but what Janet was saying was like, you're drinking poison, hoping that your intended victim dies.
Yeah. All right. That's it.
That's so well put.
Bob just summed it all up. There you go. You know, Bob, I heard a quote, everyone, where I read this. It was one of the first like personal development philosophy books that I got into when I was really new on the path of all this. It was a book by Ken Keyes Jr. called Handbook to Higher Consciousness. And he made a point in that book that we add suffering to the world just as much when we take offense as when we give offense. So, you know, when we're looking at non-resistance, I think that's the law that we're being hopefully going to apply or work with is, you know what, just, I'm not going to take offense to that. Because look, does it profit me? Here's the question. If we want to get really selfish about this, does it profit me to take offense? And if the answer is no, it probably doesn't profit you either. Well, then let's just go ahead and move on. But I could totally get what Missy's talking about. And we're gonna move into these other two chapters. We're going in reverse now. So we got non-resistance. Yes.
I'm sorry, the book that you just mentioned, could you say it again, please?
The Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes Jr. Keyes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you'd love that book, Janet. That's a classic. I'm surprised you haven't read it. You're well read. You've got a bigger bookshelf than me. Come on.
I have a lot of bigger bookshelves than you do.
Yeah. All right. So the law of compensation. To me, this one really came down to personal responsibility and avoiding the whole tendency that a lot of people have to compare themselves with others or to have competitive thought, right? Like if I get more, you get less, or all this judgment. Again, the idea of judgment about, you know, how do we get our supply, right? Whose responsibility is it for me to demonstrate supply and prosperity, right? So I need not even look sideways. If I want to see, you know, who's the cause point for all this, I can look right in the mirror and be very clear about who's causing the results that I'm getting in my life. He also talked here about, and this is kind of a play on the previous chapter where we talked about the law of increase, okay, but we're going in reverse right now. We talked about being a good steward. So if we're going to be compensated more richly, it's kind of like the parable of the talents, right? To him who hath shall be given, to him who hath not shall be taken even that which he has. So am I a good steward of these abilities and talents and money? He used an example in here of, you know, a person living in squalor, and perhaps the justification of, well, you know, we have little resources, we have little money or something, right? So that's why the house is a wreck. Wrong answer. That's not advancement. That's not creating order. And if all things happen by law, shouldn't we be looking to work with the law and to create order in our lives and be compensated more richly? It just makes perfect sense. And so I think in my world, I can tell you that I love order. And it doesn't mean, you know, to a neurotic extreme, although it could be sometimes. I get really down into the details, which is why I got triggered a little bit when Janet said, it's not about the details. Oh, I kind of like the details, Janet. I like that thing right there, not there, there, right?
Different details, John.
Yeah, so I like details. But the idea that we will continue to attract and be compensated lawfully by our ability to create order in our minds and in our lives. That resonates with me. So when we talks about the law of compensation, and not the suggestion of compensation or his opinion of compensation, but the law of compensation, it reminds me that I'm the one who's responsible for creating the order that will bring recompense in increasing quantities through multiple sources. And the more channels that I can set up, the more orderly channels I can set up to be compensated by, well, now we're getting into leverage. Now we're getting into something which I never had an example of in my young life, which was, well, basically working with the law. I saw a lot of people struggling. And of course, the next chapter, the one we just covered, was the non-resistance. Okay, but I saw a lot of people struggling, lots of friction. What did he say in the book? He said it's not the movement of the machine that wears it out, it's the friction between the parts. That's right. In fact, why do you put oil in your car engine? Right? It's to create a lubricating barrier between two pieces of metal that are rubbing against each other. Right? That's why we lubricate the inside of an engine. It's the friction. So we've got to create order there. A well-lubricated engine is an orderly state. We're compensated for creating that order. We're compensated with a long-running, powerful engine, right? We get to drive our car more than 5 miles before it seizes up, right? So we're compensated for orderliness. That's what I got out of this chapter, right? And by the way, you can't create order for me, nor can I build my house on your foundation. You see that? Okay. So enough with this comparative, competition, right? I get more, you get less, all this other stuff. Nonsense. Poppycock. Okay. You build your foundation, you build your house. Now, the socialist doesn't like to hear that.
Ooh.
Right? No. There's a whole lot going on in society right now with the difference between equality of opportunity and equity of outcome. Oh, equality of opportunity, good. Equity of outcome, no, that's called everybody loses equally. Everybody loses, except for the ruling class, and there's more to that story. If you want to look to other countries to see what they've done with that, but as a person who believes in and cherishes, the personal liberty to go and exchange in the public and free enterprise and volunteerism, right? And like all of you are volunteering to be here right now. This whole thing is brought to you by the paying members of the John Lavenia Success Mastermind. They have chosen to exchange for full access to all the stuff here. Well, what if it was just like, here's your can of beans, and everyone, no matter how good or bad your work is, here's the can of beans. Oh, you're a brain surgeon. Here's your can of beans, right? And you're the plumber. Here's your can of beans. And you do nothing but sit around and complain. Here's your can of beans. Equity of outcome. I have back when the Soviet Union was a thing, I have a friend who had to go there for some business thing or whatever, and he was in, I guess what's called Red Square. And he said, unlike the American. And I know we're talking politics and civics and governance right now, but we're talking about the law of compensation and what happens when you violate it. Okay. Because you can't break the law. Okay. But here's a society that broke that law. They broke themselves against the law. So here they are in Moscow in Red Square, and the big display in the window in Red Square was white cans of I guess beans. That was like the coolest thing you could look at when you go window shopping, was look at all that food stacked up, white cans, government issued beans. So that's where that goes. The law of compensation, can't break the law. And people figure this out, and societies figure this out. But the idea of something for nothing, which he talks about in this chapter and a couple places in this book, wow, we've got to get over that. Like that it just can't work. It just never works, ever, ever, ever. Any thoughts on this law of compensation?
I was reminded of the book of Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, uh, which I think should be required reading. It's long, and in some cases it's fairly boring, but it's philosophy. Okay, before we called economics, it was called political economy, and it was a division of moral philosophy. And Adam Smith was the first professor of political economy at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And the main message that he has is that there is an invisible hand that's at work. So this is the law of compensation. He called it the invisible hand, that everyone pursuing their own self-interest benefits society as a whole. And he said it's not due to the benevolence of the butcher or the baker that we have our meat and our bread, but to their self-interest. The butcher is in his trade because he wants to exchange the fruits of his trade for the fruits of somebody else's trade. Money is merely a vehicle for exchange. It's a medium of exchange. But, back in the days when there was barter, you exchanged goods and services for other goods and services that you didn't have. So the butcher went to his trade because he liked cutting meat. Where did he get his bread from? Well, he got it from the baker who liked baking bread. Where did he get his shoes from? From the cobbler who liked making shoes. So they're able to exchange good for good, service for service. Each person working for their own self-interest, working at what they liked doing and doing it the best they could, benefited everybody.
Right. And working within their strengths. Interest renders aptitude, right? So
Exactly.
I'm the baker. I suck at butchering, right? You the butcher. Hey, you got the good butchery, right? Here, have some bread, right? Now, of course, it's harder to tax barter, right? So now we get to deal with these symbols, right? Ink on paper and, rubles and whatever else. But thank you, Bob. Wow, that's great. You say it's a long, boring read. Is it worse than Atlas Shrugged, or is it like up in that range, like 1,000, 1,500 pages, talking? Please get to the point.
It's
Right.
2 volumes. It's actually quite dense, but as the first person that I worked with in the area where I'm working now, in retirement plan administration, said, "Bob, how do you eat an elephant?"
Yeah. Okay.
One bite at a time.
Got it. I
But
still haven't gotten through Atlas Shrugged, by the way. I'm like, oh, come on, lady, spit it
Watch
out.
the movie.
Yeah. Spit it out, lady. All right.
It's less entertaining because The Wealth of Nations is not a novel.
Right.
So you have no rooting interest. There's no, what's his name, John Galt?
Yeah. Golf. Yeah.
There's no John Galt in The Wealth of Nations.
Okay. Got it. Or Dagny Haggart, right? It's been a little while. Actually, I hear if you're into Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead is probably a better place to start than Atlas Shrugged. All right. Backing up one more chapter now. Thank you, Bob. Missy, you look brighter again. Missy's back, everyone. Missy, ladies and gentlemen. Missy.
Take it back.
Right. Okay, law of increase. You know what? This one here, he starts with this psalm. Let everything that hath breath praise the law, Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Okay, so what is that? Praise. That which we acknowledge expands. That which we validate, we get more of that. We get what we think about. This is so basic, okay? But what he's talking about in this chapter is that if we can do that in the face of adversity, there's the faith of a mustard seed, right? We can move mountains. So this is where we get to have a bit of discipline and the use of will, our mental faculty of will. Uncle Wally talked about this, right? And Science of Getting Rich. By the way, Missy, and for anyone here who's a full member of the John Lavenia Success Mastermind, if you go into your member site, click on recordings, book study, you'll find the Science of Getting Rich 4-part series, which we did in a big public workshop with a handout, workbook, and everything. It was fun. Virginia was there, right? We got a lot of mileage out of that. It was really great. Janet was there. Yeah. Okay, good. So go check that out if you're into Wally. But praise, right? So we're acknowledging increase. And as soon as I hear increase, because I've read The Science of Getting Rich so many times, which is why it just came up for me, because he talks about the impression of increase. Well, here we're talking about the law of increase. So if it's not only a law, but it's something that I can impress people with, well, it would be a pretty good thing to get conscious of and to do deliberately. So I can do that in the face of pleasing or unpleasing circumstances. I can be what? Grateful and praiseworthy. Here's the praiseworthy stuff. Let me focus on what's right, because I'm going to get more of that. I'm not perfect at this. Okay. I can bitch and gripe just with the best of them. I'm a hot-headed Italian too. I can do that. It's easy. It's easy. Okay. That's why I could do it, because it's easy. All right. But what else? What else can we find praise in? A book which we haven't been through here in this group, but it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He quoted, as I recall, my goodness, it's been 20 years since I read this book. I think he quoted Ben Franklin when he said, be lavish in praise and approbation. So here we are acknowledging the others, right? So we're not just being grateful for that which we have, that which is praiseworthy, like Paul said, those things of good report, think on these things. In other words, pray without ceasing, right? Keep praising that which is good and right. You get more of what you think about. But also you, my employee, my customer, my whoever, right? Can I not impress you with increase? Can I not work with the same law by being lavish in praise of you? By acknowledging that Janet's shirt is beautiful on her, because it is, right? You're welcome, right? And acknowledging and praising Virginia for her expert cookie baking skills. By the way, everybody grab a copy of Virginia's book. Oh my goodness. The recipes in there are spot on.
What is it? What is it?
What is it? Oh my goodness. Virginia.
Here I am.
Help us.
Just go to Amazon and look up Italian cookie recipes or Italian cookie book, and I'll be the first or second one. It's Nana's, not Nona's, Nana's Italian cookies.
Not Nona, Nana.
Nana, N-A-N-A, yeah.
Right.
Nana, what's the matter with you?
Anna,
We called her Nana, N-A-N-A,
Yeah.
what we called her. My Italian mother-in-law who baked all these wonderful, well, not all of them, but she baked quite a few, and that's why I did the book.
Okay.
wait.
Well, I'll just tell you right now that the Pignoli cookie recipe is absolute perfection.
I was thinking of maybe making them and bringing them to Vegas or bringing them Pahrump.
Oh,
We'll see.
right. For those, we're off topic now, but for those who don't know, we're getting together. We've got I've got the e-commerce thing in Vegas on the 9th and 10th. And then we're going across the mountains into Pahrump for the front sight firearms thing. So all of our
that's in
members here.
October.
What's that?
That's in October.
Yeah, October.
The 9th and 10th, which could be September. So just
9th and 10th for me on stage. And then on the 11th, we're going to be
yeah.
rolling around in the dirt, shooting guns in the desert. It's going to be awesome. Okay. So actually, we're doing a beginner's course. So you're not rolling around in the dirt. You got to do the advanced stuff to get dirty. Anyway, so increase, right? That which we acknowledge expands. That which we validate, we get more of that. So what are we praising? Or are we sitting around letting others rent space in our head or bemoaning our circumstances? Again, it's easy to do. Any half an idiot can show up and be critical, right? I've been critical plenty of times in my life. It hasn't profited me. What do you guys think about
I'm good at it too, John.
Right.
but I think the namaste, the God in me salutes the God in you or greets the God in you. And I think that when so I was reading praise with the heart. The thing is that when we okay, so this thing is going on. And where can I find that bit of good? Where can I say, wow, you really today, or you find that peace. I have read, I haven't raised children, but I've read, if you point out their good things, you really did that well today. Not you were a little brat and you made me so angry and whatever else, but you really did that thing good today. You really, really shined and what something. That puts the attention on that thing, and that brings more of it. No matter what we're talking about, if you find that good thing and mention it, talk about it, praise it, you'll get more of it.
Mhm.
You'll get more of that kind of behavior when in your presence. And I'll just wear the shirt every day now. It's just whether we're talking on a personal level, a business level, a spiritual level, whatever it is, it's all true. What you're saying and what we're reading, it's all true. What you focus on grows. And I think, and what you praise, even in yourself, if I find that kernel and I praise it, I feel better, as well as you will feel better that I said it to. When you're teaching, it's easy. I'm learning, but it's easy to say, oh, you didn't do that right, or you need to increase this or something. But if you say, I had a teacher who would give us a microscope, and he would look at your lettering, and he would go, this is calligraphy now, you guys. He would look at the letter and he'd go, look at that letter A. That is just the greatest letter A. That's so good. And you go, oh, now I know what to shoot for. I know how to make a better letter A. That one stands out. And so that gives me a feeling that I did something well, and I might be able to repeat it, especially knowing that I did it well. And so whatever it is on whatever level, I'm trying to do this more in my life with whatever I do, including teaching. It's like, yeah, praise those things. Yeah, I'll say, you know what, your spacing's uneven. This is something, but look at that. Look at what you did right there. That is so great. Do more of it.
Right. Thank you, Janet. One of the things that my daughter introduced me to, I think I've mentioned, Master Chef reruns. You can get it on download, right? Gordon Ramsay and the other, Master Chefs, and there's the home cooks, and they're trying to win the prize. And you could see, and it's television, right? So there's drama. By Gordon Ramsay screaming, throwing the plate with the food that is not edible, right? And it's good television, okay? But you could see these people glowing when, this master, right, acknowledges that's like the best dish I've ever had in this competition. Wow, amazing how you put that together, right? Have you made this before? Wow, this is as good as mine. So you could see that validation and that acknowledgement, right? Of course, they also want to win, the prize money and all this. But same thing with like my daughter. If she does a good voluntarily, without me nagging her or whatever, right? She unloaded the dishwasher. Trinity, thank you so much for doing that. That's so helpful for me and mommy. We're like working on business stuff over here, so we can buy you even more stuff, believe it or not. And and so she just exchanged, she was an asset to the family at that point. That was her, paying her keep, so to speak, right? Because look, kids need validation too, and they want to exchange, right? They want to be of worth, right? And not just be a parasite on the family, right? So give them work, right? And then acknowledge it. Wow, well done. Anyway, guys, I think I got a lot of food for action out of these chapters. By the way, we're finishing this book next week. There's 4 more chapters. Rip through all 4 of them. So Cecilia, hopefully you've got that book in your hands, or you will by the end of today, because we're going through these last 4 chapters, and then we're going to be starting another book. the last 4 chapters here are the law of forgiveness, sacrifice. That sounds like fun. Obedience and success. So get ready to sacrifice and be obedient. You guys, you've noticed that a lot of these books or a lot of these chapters where he talks about, like, remember the chapter on the law of receiving? The whole damn chapter was about giving. So like whatever the chapter title is, get ready for a bit of dichotomy in there.
This is the right book. Is this the right book? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Show it.
Buy 15 copies, give them all to your friends. All right. Any other comments on working with the law?
I
Okay.
fought the law and the law won.
All right. Thank you, sir.
That's true.
All right.
See, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not a conformist. I hate to have to follow what I'm told, etc. So I fight a lot.
Right.
And I'm learning that isn't always the way to do it.
Well, I'm glad to be out of my self-imposed prison. So that's good.
Yeah. I'm a very much a nonconformist as well, but I don't sit around arguing with gravity. Right. So yeah, there's definitely, and we're working with what we got, not with what should be. We're working with what we got. Personally, I'd like a little less gravity, please.
And in my mind, I
Yeah.
used to go to a place. Would go to a couple of places in my mind. One was this field with very, very tall grass and warm sun, not hot, warm sun. And I could roll and leap and have fun. And it had less gravity.
Right.
I
That's
could
great.
jump higher.
All right. Well, maybe in one of these lifetimes we'll get to do like other planets and stuff, and like check that out. So do the less gravity thing. Okay. My friends, thank you for being here. I'm going to be selecting this week. I'm going to be selecting our next book. And so get excited because I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe something good.
Yeah. Please give us time to get it.
Yes. Well, this week you will know it. And then by next week, you will have it in your hands. Okay.
Thank
Thank you, my
John.
friends, for being here. Good to see you all. I see Ace Man's here too. Cecilia, thank you for being here. We'll get together and I will send out reminders next week. It has just been crazy day.
Yeah.
So you guys have a good one and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye,